One of the harder things to build, and it took me quite a while to perfect this and to get it down to where it was able to be usable, is making a ball out of straight pieces of paper. It's very challenging. But I wanted to make Darth Vader's TIE Fighter and his Escort Wing TIE Fighter, and I wanted to make a small Death Star. So I started with the Death Star, and that taught me a lot about having to build a ball that actually rolls and doesn't hop around because it's lumpy on one side. So to do a TIE Fighter, I pretty much use 3-inch diameter circles, and I also use a toilet paper roll because this is the insert that you will make your cockpit out of. It gives you your dimensions for cutting your inset so that your cockpit will slide into the TIE Fighter itself. Once you get your circles, and you will need at least, let's see, 2, 4, 6, you're going to need a lot of these. I think 8 or 16 total, but we won't know until we're done with the build, or until at least we get it pretty much started so we know. Once you have these, then you cut out this part. This is what you need. This is going to be your inset for putting your cockpit into your TIE Fighter. These are going to be the outside pieces that we're going to make the ball out of. This part of it is a bit time consuming, and personally it kind of sucks. But anyway, this is what you need. You probably want to delete that. I don't want to say that. Anyway, you want to sand these edges flat, because once they're sanded flat, at least the two that I would guess would be perpendicular to this piece, because they need to sit reasonably flat onto what you're gluing in place. Put a little glue there to soften that lump up. You won't use the seams or the creases in a lot of your boxes, very rarely, but when you're building an interior, these seams disappear. They won't show, and they won't hurt you to be inside the ship. You put your glue on, you line everything up, and then you wait. Okay, once you get your parts together, or start putting them together, what you need to do is line these up and look straight down onto it. That way you can see if you're lining them up evenly. And then just let it sit until that dries really well so that you can put your other pieces on. As you know, I showed the other day when we were doing the first part of this film that you cut these pieces out, and you cut a lot of them because you need a bunch. Well, I also take the radius from what I've got, and I mark out these about 1/4 inch pieces, because what you have to do is, once you get all these in place, then you have to start filling this in, and a little bit later you'll see all of that. But once you get this down, you start with your centerpiece, you put your cross member in, so you got 4, then you do 8, then you do 16. And it gives you an extremely strong product, and it builds just like you would if you were actually in space building. And so what we do is we just kind of put the glue on here like so, and this isn't so particular, you can have extra glue, these seem to work good. I just put it in there and dab it around and move it, and I look in here to make sure it's lining up about right, and you just kind of hold that in place for a little bit, and then get out of there and go to your next one. Now you're going to have variances in this, because these are not die cut pieces. You're going to have a lot of high and low spots, but that'll all be worked out once you start putting the skin on this. So once you get all of these pieces together and lined up and drying, you have what we call, where's my other parts? Ah, here they are. Now, I showed you these a little bit ago. What I've done is I made a lot of them because you're going to need a lot of them to do what you've got coming up next. Because you've got to make that structurally sound so that you can wrap it with paper and then sand it down and wrap more paper on it and end up with a ball that works right. And this is kind of what you end up with. What you want to do is figure out, now these mostly, where's my ruler? Handy little friend right here, these rules. These are about ½ inch, a little over ½ inch, but that's roughly your distance. So you're looking at, what is that? What is that? That's 2, 4, 6, 8. So about 9/16. 9/16? Yeah, 9/16 of an inch between these. And you then start at one point and you glue one piece on, and then you glue the next one on and the next one, and you make your first ring. And I usually run the center because it is pretty close to your 9/16 on every one of them. Then once those are glued in place and reasonably dry, then you start your second row, third row, fourth row, and fifth row. Once that is all done, then you can start finding your high spots and low spots. The high spots, like these, they will sand off. So I start sanding this as soon as it's dry enough. Usually you gotta wait a day because it has to be totally dry. Otherwise you just break your little pieces out and then you're wasting a whole lot of time fixing stuff you didn't need to fix. So anyway, once you sand it, the low spots show up because they're where it isn't sanded at all. So I add little pieces of paper, strips, into the low spots. That brings them up. Then I sand it some more and it takes it down some more. Then you bring the low spots up and you bring the high spots down. And at that point also, once you've got this done, you need to think about putting in your cockpit. Now, as I showed earlier, we had a toilet paper roll. Toilet paper roll fits, well, it'll fit right down in there. But what you have to do with it first is find your diameter and take 2 pieces of cardstock, glue it together, and then sand it down so that it fits in here tight. Once you get it to where it fits in there nice and tight, that is the back of your cockpit. Now this is about as round as you can get. Then when you're setting up, you can see your high spots, and wherever you've got a high spot, yep, that was too wide. And this one went, there we go. Then you sand it down because you want your cockpit to fit in there nice and snug so it doesn't move around and won't fall out. Well, it'll be glued in, so you won't have to worry about that. There's a couple high spots right there. I made all my sanding blocks. They come in really handy. I have different sizes, of course. There's a small square one, there's this size here. They all come in handy for different applications. And so you keep working all of these high spots down until your cockpit piece fits right in there like that. And that is the first stage to your cockpit. You'll build your seats and your dashboard and your little figure, action figure inside here. before you have to put it in here and have more things to deal with. Because if you build it here, it's easier to work with than this, which is not easy to work with. Thank you for watching.